Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I could not be happier than to be here today with Daniel Schmid, who's the Vice President of Sustainability for SAP. I'm really eager to learn more both about his journey in sustainability, but also SAP, who we all know is a leader in global corporate social responsibility, and to hear about all their efforts in the field of sustainability. I'll encourage you if you want to ask questions. I'm fairly new at this, but they should show up in my chat. If they do, I'm happy to answer any questions that come in. So let me get us back to Daniel. Daniel, maybe you could just start by talking about, I know you were in the consulting world for a while for SAP in a very senior role, and then you've made the shift over to leading the sustainability efforts as Vice President. Could you talk a little bit about what precipitated that shift for you?
It was quite a funny situation. So I received a call from an executive board member from SAP back in the summer 2008, and he said, "Oh, I associate you, Daniel, and your leadership style with sustainability. Am I right?" And you can imagine, I was on the phone and thought, what will be the next question? Yeah. How I managed the people under my area of responsibility, how I always took care about their health, their safety, but as well, not focusing on the short-term quarterly success, but really on the mid and long-term success. Obviously, that resonated quite well with the former board member of SAP. And so he told me then, "Oh, I would like to see you being embedded or being an integral part of the project." The board decided to set up and to define sustainability, to define an organization, to define the first targets, our understanding. You need to talk to all our stakeholders, the customers, the investors, the own employees, and so on. So that was, and then the final comment from him was, "Daniel, please say yes or no tomorrow morning between 7:30 and 8:30. But the decision was already made on my way back because, yeah, it's such a great privilege to be SAP's Chief Sustainability Officer.
Yeah. Well, I'm imagining two things. One, getting a call from a board member, but how wonderful to hear that this started at the board level, right, which is probably partially why it's so successful. But then also that he was generous enough to give you an entire evening to think about it. So even if you didn't need that long, that's great. So how did you go about setting goals, setting methods? How are you implementing this or even envisioning it at SAP?
It all started by asking tons of questions to our key stakeholders and listening to what they expect from SAP. Where we should focus, what is the most material for us. And that is, of course, a journey. Yeah? It is a continuous journey there of learning and adapting and then reshaping. But one first key learning was it would be not the right approach to run our business strategy and next to it, in a siloed fashion, a sustainability strategy. You need to embed sustainability in your core business strategy. And here we made great progress, in particular 2 years ago. Even the sustainability was already greatly embedded in our business strategy, but now it's such a core pillar of SAP's business strategy, and sustainability has clearly evolved to be a core business topic for our customers of strategic relevance. So it needs to be, in our case as well, of strategic relevance. So that was one key learning. Another key learning, I remember quite well my conversations back in the beginning of 2009 when we suggested to our executive board members our first emission reduction target. Yeah, and the target was bringing back our emissions by 2020 back to 2000 levels.
Oh.
Do you know what the reaction was, Karen? They told me, "Daniel, it's a great target. It's easy to remember. 2020 back to 2000. But you know, Daniel, we have a growth path. We would like to be 4 times bigger than we have been in 2000, and we achieved that. So it's very ambitious, that absolute goal, not a relative goal, but an absolute goal. So how will we achieve it?" And I told them, I don't know. But by having such an ambitious goal, you start to be more creative and innovative. You start to allocate budgets in a different way. You start to think differently. You have the focus on that. And usually you go to the board and have a plan, yeah. But in that case, it was really our complete belief and being convinced about that is the right way to go. And then we learned through that, like I mentioned, being more innovative. Back in 2016, we introduced an internal price on carbon. So whenever a colleague sits in a plane, currently almost not happening due to the pandemic, but when they're for business travel reasons sit in a plane, then Daniel gets money. Yeah, so that allows me to follow the avoidance reduction compensation journey. Yeah, that three-pillar strategic approach. And then I can compensate for the flights. And it works in the crisis mode as well. Almost no emissions due to less travel. So I don't need such a lot of money in my hand.
Yeah. Wow. I love that they increased your goals. I mean, how often would that happen in a board meeting for any topic, right? By fourfold, but clearly a commitment to be a leader in this field.
Yeah, right, Karen. And then as well, we realized that integration is needed. Yeah, not having a SIMD strategy next to the business strategy. So back at the end of the year 2013, I realized the new tagline, the new headline of our business strategy will be to be the most innovative cloud provider. And then I said to the board, we need to provide our offerings from a green cloud. We need to integrate our environmental strategy with the business strategy. So since January 2014, all the data centers, including the co-locations, now the hyperscalers, are run by green energy of high quality. That is another example. So with that, we already achieved the original target 3 years ahead in 2017. And then the next natural logical step was, let's come up with the next midterm target to be carbon neutral in our own operations by 2025. And Karen, do you know what happened then? With the pandemic, we realized, almost no emissions anymore caused due to commuting, less emissions caused by business travel. And so we used the learnings of the pandemic with a plan in our mind that we will not move to the old behaviors, but move to the more flexible hybrid world in the future. And so we said, let's pull forward our 2025 target by 2 years. So 1 year ago, we announced that we will be carbon neutral in our own operations and selective scope 3 emissions as well being included there by 2 years earlier, so in 2023. And now 4 weeks ago, we said our net zero target covering the entire value chain, the upstream emissions, your emissions caused by your operations, your downstream emissions, we pull forward that target by 20 years. We already had the approval from the Science Based Target Initiative for our 2050 target.
Yeah.
And now we would like to be net zero by 2030.
Wow. Well,
And, I guess you know SAP a little bit. We have more than 400,000 customers around the world in all industries. And of course, we have many customers running our systems in a very successful way in an on-premise setup.
yes.
And the accelerated movement to the cloud, including the benefits of our Cloud for Sustainable Enterprise, that is as well an accelerator now to that transformation that will help us to achieve the target, because more than 80% of our value chain emissions across the entire value chain are caused by the on-premise world.
Wow. I love the idea of the green cloud, right? When we think of SAP, we think of blue. And you can see this here in your background, right? So I love the idea of the green cloud, and certainly we're hopefully getting almost all clients to the cloud sooner rather than later. So that definitely helps. What are some other things that you're doing internally to help with these emissions reductions? You mentioned going hybrid and just some changes that were caused by the pandemic.
First, the beauty is that, and we realized that back in 2009, that you need to use the passion of your workforce. Yeah, the people working at SAP, they love to work for a company which is a role model of a sustainable company. 94% in the latest survey told us exactly that SAP needs to follow that path and being an example, a role model of a sustainable company. So they have clear expectations and they would like to see that. But then you can use that passion from your workforce, having champions around the world. We asked them, would you like to be part of that journey? Already back in March 2009, and then within 24 hours, almost 300 people raised their hand, and we just thought about a network of 100 people. So we closed that list, where they could raise their hand. So that is one wonderful aspect of it. So, and that was what I would like to encourage others as well. Use the power and the passion of your employees. They are happy to contribute to that. That's number one. Number two is you need to start by creating transparency. Yeah. You know, all that classical term of measure you can't manage.
Exactly.
So it starts with transparency, and quarter by quarter, we do not only announce our financial performance on earnings day, as well our non-financial performance. Our CEO, Christian Klein, our CFO, Luka Mocic, are quite vocal in front of press and financial analysts, and always quarter by quarter inform these people on our performance. But as well on the same day, all the employees have access to our beautiful sustainability dashboard. And of course, we apply our own technology to create that transparency. And then they see their data of their team they belong to, of their location they belong to. They can filter the geographical and the organization dimension, and then they can see how the neighbor department performs, what they can learn from that. And that creates that positive, sportive spirit in the company to further improve. Yeah? And then they share these best practice, in particular in the network of these sustainability champions we have around the globe.
I love this. So can you say more about maybe the specific metrics that a team could see about it?
The metrics consist of environmental data and of social data as well. We should not forget the social dimension. It's super important to me. A sustainability journey always starts with the human rights.
Yes.
So they see like diversity indicators, they see retention figures, and they have the full transparency, not only for the department, but really across the entire company. And then they have the environmental data and the carbon emissions caused by the various emission sources, like the business travel, like the rental cars, like commuting, like the electricity being needed in the offices, the energy needed to heat the offices. And I could go on and on, with the car fleet and all that. So they have the full transparency about all these emission sources.
Wow. So I'm imagining, because it's, I think, true for most things in life, you have an upfront cost that hopefully will pay off over time. So beyond this sort of public commitment, clearly SAP made a financial commitment to this. Can you talk more about that, either in terms of what kind of commitment they made, how you've been able to, beyond getting credits when people fly, sort of how you get your funding, how do you decide where to apply those funds once you have them? It's a big need in terms of what we can do for sustainability.
Yeah, Kim, let me come back to what I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation about you need to embed sustainability in your business strategy.
Yes.
And of course, we have a twofold strategic approach. One is we need to clearly do our homework internally. Yeah? We need to have that ambition to be a role model, an example of a sustainable company. Otherwise, we would not learn and we would not gain the credibility to help our customers to become more sustainable. But helping the customers to become more sustainable, that is a level big like this in comparison to SAP's footprint we have. So this is where the board is fully committed and clearly made these investment cases and say, hey, we allocate and focus with our financial resources and people to invest in embedding sustainability criteria, sustainability data in our data models. And that is crucial. That is what our customers expect from us, because what they need are reliable data, data of good quality, in timely fashion at the point of the decision, being embedded in the business process. And who, if not SAP, who runs the material floors for 50 years now? Yeah, we celebrate this year the 50th birthday of SAP. So we run the material floors, we run the financial floors, now embedding sustainability criteria in the business processes at the end, yeah, and combining the business process experience we have with the industry experience we have, with the business network experience we have, because look at just on the topic of carbon data, of greenhouse gas emission data, you need to cover your entire value chain. So you need to get data out of the various emission sources from your suppliers, from your own operations, from your logistic partner, from third-party data providers, and. So you need an open architecture. You need to embed the data in your data models across the entire SAP portfolio. It's hard for me to imagine any solution from SAP where sustainability criteria should not be embedded.
Yes.
So this is the strong commitment we made. That is a huge investment we made. We started on that journey already many years ago. Like our environment, health and safety solutions are used by thousands of customers. But now we enhanced that and we focus on the SAP Cloud for Sustainable Enterprise as a solution covering a lot of how you best deal with the business challenges. As an example, Karen, if you allow, you do not need only the data on a group or company-wide level. You need to bring down to the level where decisions are made. Many companies, depending on the industries, but decisions are quite often made on a product level. So you need the product footprint. Yeah, you need to manage the data there, and then you need to allow for simulation. What if I would change from one supplier to the other supplier? What does it mean from a cost perspective, producing that product, manufacturing that product, or from an emission perspective? What if I would produce the product in production plant number A versus B? Yeah, what impact it has on the emissions, but as well on the cost. So you need to steer your business holistically. And many companies out there, they made pledges in the past years. You know, we would like to be carbon neutral or carbon negative. And anyhow, there's quite an issue with all this different terminology out there. Yeah, confusing people, unfortunately. So we need to do a better job, my peers and myself, with that. But coming back to the original point I would like to make, it is really important that you connect the financial and the non-financial world. Yeah, there is such a, we realized in our own cause and effect chains and our own methodology how huge the impact of the so-called non-financial, maybe we should call them pre-financial, is on the financials. As an example, 1 percentage point change in employee engagement at SAP, up or down, means around 50 million euro in our operating result, up or down. Or the business health culture index measuring the individual and organizational health, 1 percentage point change there means 100 million euro up or down. But that leads me to the challenge I see here as well, because it was our own methodology. People like you, Karen, you can't compare the data with other companies. No. It was SAP's own methodology. So we are founding member of the Value Balancing Alliance, which was founded back in 2019, with the ambition how impact of your core business activities on us, on people, on society, and the impact of your core business activity on our planet should be measured in a standardized way, and how to value that, how to put a euro or dollar behind it. And that would be a huge needle mover. That would be a game changer, because then you can embed that data in your decision process.
You never take on the easy problems, do you?
No, that is quite a complex. But I would say it's needed. It's needed. It's definitely needed. Yeah, because we have a clear shift is needed. Yeah, we need to change how business is done. How business is done, because with efficiency alone, don't get me wrong, it's important, but we will not solve today's societal challenges. We need to do business differently, and that is the reason why for me sustainability is such a great innovation driver and growth driver. Yeah, you can And I observe that different maturity levels of companies, they are still the ones, oh, I need to be compliant. Oh, I see there's
Right.
more and more dynamic going on with legislation and creating transparency with your reporting, or dealing with the Modern Slavery Act in UK or in Australia, or with it's called in Germany Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz. So we are
Better
quite
you to
famous
say
for
that
long
than
words.
me. Okay.
It's a Human Rights Due Diligence Act in Germany, and that you have transparency about your value chain, so including your own operations, your suppliers, about human rights, labor standards. Yeah, and they are these companies how to ensure compliance. But then there's the next maturity level of companies seeing the beautiful business case of sustainability. Oh, less energy consumption means less cost. Less waste means less cost. Higher employee retention means higher productivity, being more profitable. And then there are, on the third level, these companies who see sustainability as really as an innovation driver. They challenge their own business models. They challenge how they produce and develop products. They design our products for circular economy. Yeah, they create new business models. And these are the front runners I see. They have that advantage in the market as well, because people like you, Karen, or me, we tend to choose more and more the more sustainable products and services. They have the higher growth rates. That is needed in the world. And if you have that holistic view and seeing it not just from a risk perspective, but as well from an opportunity perspective, that is beautiful.
It is. Thank you for sharing that framework. You mentioned the circular economy. Could you say a little more about that? I know
Circular
it's a big
economy,
topic.
yeah, it's a big topic. So interesting how you phrased that question. So,
Yes.
but let me first explain that circular economy is heavily connected with climate action. Yeah? Because just with the energy transition, we will not fully address the potential and what is needed. So based on an Ellen MacArthur Foundation study, I learned that 45% of positive contribution coming from circular economy on the climate action field. So, and here we need to learn to work across industries. Yeah. Today, quite often companies use digital solutions to manage their material flows, their financial flows internally, and to be as efficient as possible. But when the product leaves the gate, then they have no transparency anymore.
Right.
That needs to change. We need to urgently move towards circularity with the idea to even in the design phase of the product, having that idea, no waste at all. Yeah, that you reuse the product, that you have a second product life, that you can refurbish the product, recycle that, and keep the resources in the loop. And that needs data transparency across company boundaries and even across industry boundaries. So let me share one concrete example. Sure. The topic of packaging of consumer goods. Oh. It sounds so easy, but you need to bring together the consumer brands with the waste management companies, with the recycling companies, with the chemical companies, with the retailers, yeah? And then you need to share data in a consistent way across that business network in order to allow that urgently needed movement towards circular economy. So that is a huge business case as well for these consumer brands. Think about here as well regulation like the extended producer responsibility. So our solution here, it's called SAP Responsible Design and Production. It's part of our Cloud for Sustainable Enterprises. And here companies help us to develop that in a co-innovation methodology, yeah, in a co-innovation style, to help us to develop the solution in the right way. And it's now used and produce already great business outcomes.
Well, as a consumer who during the last 24 months overconsumed on cardboard, having things delivered to my house, I am very eager for that problem to be solved. And I think it's just highlighted the problem that already existed. But or printers, I think, are also the sort of the poster child for this, right? That they only live 24 months and then they die, and there's nothing to do with this hulk of machine that that's in your office. So
But you see as well there in that space how business model changed.
exactly.
Like instead of purchasing a toner, you purchase printing as a service.
Exactly.
And
It's
there is an
exactly what I
automatic
do.
system
Yeah.
behind, and then
Yeah.
circularity is already applied for these, how do you call them in English, toner?
Toner cartridges. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you see how the model is changing here and how
Exactly.
innovation is coming in.
Yeah. I'm very happy to pay for the outcome and not for the thing itself. So
But
all good. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. I would ask you a final question. I typically ask I'll just say the logo for my consulting business is up and to the right because that's the place on the 2x2 matrix that we always want to be. So it's clear what's happened with your career. How will you know when we're moving in that direction as a society for sustainability? How will you know that we're actually getting to the place we need to be in terms of sustainability from where we are today?
I would say there's not a concrete place B. It is really a journey. It's a journey, and we need to accelerate here. But I'm quite optimistic because every day I'm in conversations with customers, with partners, with employees, and so with all stakeholders, with investors. Don't forget that, very important
Right.
stakeholder community as well. And I see the difference now. Of course, 10 years ago, I wished that already there sustainability should be a core business topic, but now it is a core business topic of high strategic relevance. There's no CEO to CEO conversation anymore without touching on sustainability. It's so crucial. It's so important. And you know why, Karen? Because either there's sustainable business or no business. In the past, we had that conversation, are you sustainable or profitable? But it's clear and it shows that only the companies who embed sustainability in their core business strategy will be the ones being successful mid and long term. So that is what drives me, encourages me to stay optimistic, but urgent change is needed.
Yeah. Well, many thanks to you and to SAP for modeling the way for many, many others. And I really appreciate your time today. Thanks. And
Thank you, Karen.